The all-new Hot 97.7, Michael J hanging out with you. As promised, NFL football talk. Even though we had a little bit of an issue starting out, but you know what? That's what happens. Technology never works when you need it to, ever. I don't know why that is. But anyway, Michael J hanging out with you. Joining me in the co-host seat is my man, Michael Moraitis. He is the managing editor for USA Today's The Titan Wire. And look, me and this dude go way back. So first, let me say welcome to the show, man, and thank you so much for coming and hanging out with me today.
Oh, man, it's great to be here. So excited for week one, and you're one of the OGs in my writing career, man. When I first was getting off, you had me on your show, and I appreciate all that. So we go back a long time.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Yeah, it's been a ride, man. Let's just say that.
For sure.
It's been a ride for both of us. But let's talk about Thursday real quick. Let's just start off with that. I have to ask you, because I've asked so many other colleagues, I got to ask you, did you think, because so many of us picked Buffalo, go to the Super Bowl, whatever. We'll get to that later on in the show. But did you expect Buffalo to be that dominant against the Rams on Thursday night?
I expected the Bills to be very good. I mean, I think for the most part, I think everybody's pretty much picking them to win the Super Bowl. I am. So I expected them to look very good. Josh Allen is just on another level, and he's going to be even better than he's been in the previous years. But I expected the Rams to put up more of a fight, to be honest with you. I mean, I thought that was going to be a high-scoring game. I thought the over was a lock, as many people did. But, Matthew Stafford, the offseason surgery, he didn't look too great. A couple of passes sailing on him. Cam Akers looked terrible. I don't know what's going on there. He doesn't look like he's ready to play. And, their offensive line showed a lot of warts. Jalen Ramsey got burnt deep. So it was just really a terrible night for the Rams. Might be a little bit of a Super Bowl hangover there. We'll see moving forward. Don't want to get too crazy about one game, but it's certainly a terrible start for the Rams.
Sure, overreaction Monday. And everybody heard it. We all heard it. We heard, guys on ESPN and Fox and everybody. Here's the thing. I'm going to say this. I personally, it's not that I saw the score being that lopsided, but I did feel like, knowing Josh Allen, because I've interviewed him before when he was up in Wyoming, knowing this kid and how he felt about last year, I honestly felt like he was going to come out guns a-blazing. I just did. Now, the defensive side of the ball, the fact that Von Miller was able to elevate those guys, make them play harder than they've probably ever played. Their camp has been amazing from what I understand. So Von has brought such a key component to that defense by being that mentor, by being that leader, to say, hey, you can do this. I know you can, and pushing these guys. That defense was just, they were insane. It was like they wouldn't stop. And, to be honest with you, I kind of had a feeling that the game was going to look that way. Not score-wise, but I had a feeling that Buffalo was going to come out. Josh Allen was going to make a statement. My God, did you see that stiff arm, Mike?
Yes.
Did you see oh, my God.
Yep. You could tell there was a little extra motivation behind that one. Like you said, he's a man on fire this year. He really wants to prove that he's good enough to take this team and that this team is good enough to win a Super Bowl, to finally get over the hump. And like you said, Von Miller is an enormous addition. If he stays healthy, not only is he going to, rack up sacks, but he opens things up for everybody else on the defense. And, just having to worry about him on top of some of the other guys they have on their front. And then you talk about Tre'Davious White, is not even going to play the first 4 games when he comes back. Yep. I mean, that defense is going to be very, very good, and that just makes them even harder to beat. So they can outscore you, and they can also, they have the type of defense that they can win a low-scoring, tight game. So they really have it all right now, and things are looking very good in Buffalo.
Devin Singletary impressed me too.
Yes.
Because you were talking about Cam Akers, and I'll tell you, I'm kind of a gambling man a little bit, and I had some great picks for Thursday, and if it wasn't for Cam Akers, I'd probably be about $525 richer today. But
yeah, you're not the only one.
Cam Akers kind of put a damper on that, bro. So, there's that. But, as far as, on the other side with Devin Singletary, look, I'll tell you, I was very impressed. Very impressed. I know he's a good back, and everybody, expected big things from him, but he played really, really well. Look, from top to bottom, the Buffalo Bills, I don't know who you're going to say, in the AFC, they were this close last year. To be honest with you, I thought that should have been the Super Bowl last year. And I think a lot of us thought it was going to be the Super Bowl last year. Because, to be quite frank, if it would have been, the Rams wouldn't have won that Super Bowl, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so. I think, Singletary looked really good. He's had some struggles over the, first few years of his career, but he looked like the best back by far for Buffalo. James Cook obviously is off to a rough start, but I really didn't expect much from him this year. He'll have a little bit of a role, but it's going to be Singletary and Moss for the most part. Maybe Cook picks up more snaps as the year goes on. But yeah, I mean, if not for an overtime rule, maybe, if not for the coin flip, maybe, the Bills are in the Super Bowl. They were unstoppable in that game, but unfortunately for them, so were the Chiefs.
Yeah.
But I think when you talk about the addition of Von Miller, that might be the one that puts that defense over the top to be able to win that type of game this year if it comes down to that.
Absolutely. Michael J, Mike Moraitis, right down the line is the name of the show. We are sponsored and brought to you by W Energy Drink. Make sure you get over to W.GG. And look, if you're looking for a good boost in your day with no jitters, this is Jitterless Energy Drink. It's amazing. It tastes great. I drink it at least twice a day. If you want to get yours, get over to W.GG. Use promo code Michael J Radio and get 10% off your next purchase. All right. So the Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson, it's a big story. They obviously have not come to an agreement. Lamar Jackson has no agent. Okay,
I love it.
I was just going to ask you, where are you at with that?
I don't think it's really a big deal. People make a big deal about it. And Chris Mortensen reported this morning that the NFLPA kind of advises him and helps him through because there's a lot of ins and outs. And agents are, pretty much a necessary evil. But sure. I think guys especially Lamar, I think he's capable of getting himself the best contract. Really, the holdup, I don't think has anything to do with having an agent. I just think that Lamar is looking for that big guaranteed money like Deshaun Watson got. And according to Mortensen, he was offered about $133 million guaranteed and a deal that was worth up to $290 million overall. So until the Ravens bring that guaranteed money number up, Lamar's going to stick to his guns. And quite honestly, if he ever hit free agency, I'm pretty sure there are probably a handful of teams that would be willing to give it to him. So this one's it's heading towards a franchise tag next year if the Ravens don't bring up their offer in guaranteed money. And you could be looking at a holdout situation where Lamar is gonna, is not going to risk his future. Sure. So maybe you have a holdout situation next year, and that could get messy. So we'll see what happens.
He plays for the $23 million this year, obviously, because they've gone past that point. Here's the thing. I don't think that there's two sides for me on this. Part of me is I understand where he's coming from. That's a big chunk of money that you have to give to an agent. But at the end of the day, that's what these guys do. As much as, like you said, it's a necessary evil sometimes when you think about it. Because, and I'm not saying that Lamar isn't a bright guy. I'm just saying maybe leave things to other people. You make enough money. Is it really that big? The guy's going to fight for you as much as you're fighting for yourself. At least a good agent will. Now, if we go back and look at this, $290 million, the guaranteed you said was what, 130? 130 plus?
133, yeah, which would have been more than Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray, actually, by a pretty good amount.
Don't you think we're kind of, look, I understand he wants more guaranteed money. But on the other side of it, as an owner of two businesses, I understand where the Ravens are coming from. You want to protect your interests and your money as well. Like, what happens if you get, you get hurt or, I still have to pay you all this money and you're not going to play. So at the end of the day, I understand both sides. However, $290 million and you're squirming over the guarantee, which is more than some of the other top tier quarterbacks as well that did finish their season last year. To me, it's a little cumbersome. I kind of have an issue when these players who, you know me, I've said this for years, professional athletes are overpaid. And I think we can all agree upon that. But like my other colleagues have told me, Mike, you got to understand, it's what the market dictates. And I understand that. And I know that that's how this works. It's just, to me, sometimes I think some of these guys lose focus of what really matters. And what matters is the game of football. Your guarantee is more than other quarterbacks. Your contract is more than other quarterbacks. Why are we still in this debate? I think is my biggest issue.
Yeah, I mean the money is just, I mean it's insane, and you see it in the NBA too, and really in professional sports, the numbers are just they continue going up, and they're not stopping anytime soon. From the Ravens standpoint, I understand there's a little extra risk with Lamar. He runs more often than most quarterbacks do, so maybe a little more susceptible to injury. Maybe that's what the Ravens are thinking. But also, Lamar hasn't been able to get them over the hump. They've had some good teams with him, and they haven't been able to get to the Super Bowl. So, perhaps there's a little hesitation on their part. But then again, if you're the Ravens, do you really want to wade into the waters of having to find a new franchise quarterback? That's not easy. And sometimes, listen, you'll fail a couple of times before you find a guy who's even remotely serviceable. So there's going to have to be some common ground there between those two. But right now, we're heading for a franchise tag in 2023, and I think it's very reasonable that you could see a holdout next year, and that would just make the situation even crazier.
More volatile. Yeah. Look, and speaking of quarterbacks, I got to ask you because I'm a Steeler fan. I got to ask you real quick because we're going to talk about quarterbacks here in a little bit too. But was it the right move by Mike Tomlin and that coaching staff? Because apparently the folks in Pittsburgh want to see Kenny. They want to see this kid. They want him to start. Mike Tomlin came on, said, we're going with Mitchell. They made him a captain. Was it the right move in your opinion? Or do you let the flags fly and give the rookie a shot?
I don't think the Steelers are going anywhere this year. I think they made the right move. They're trying to win now, and I think they believe that Trubisky gives them the best chance to do that. When things inevitably go south, and they will, I think for the Steelers, I don't think this is a playoff team this year. I think they'll turn to Pickett in the second half of the year, give him let him get his feet wet, and then just unleash him in year two. They both looked very good. I was pleasantly surprised by Pickett. I think he looked fantastic, and he might be ready to start right now. But they signed Trubisky to be the starter in the offseason, and I think they're going to give him a shot. And when things inevitably go south, like I said, they're going to turn to Pickett, and that'll be the future. And I think that'll happen in the second half of the season.
Look, I agree with you. I think they made the right choice. As much as I was screaming from the rooftops to let the kid go, at the end of the day, you still have to think about other components. And one of the biggest components in Pittsburgh is that offensive line. Still very young. There's still a lot of issues. Just is what it is. It's gotten better. But at the end of the day, you have to think of this. Do you really want to put that kid who's supposed to be the future in that position? Do you really want to put that kid in harm's way? Because it's not like Mitchell Trubisky is the greatest scrambling quarterback on the earth, but he's serviceable. He can scramble. He's got decent legs. He can get out of the pocket when he needs to. They weren't sure if they were going to get Kenny Pickett. So to have Mitchell come in, to sit him down, tell him, you're going to buy for the spot, yada, yada. They paid him enough money. Honestly, I thought it was the right choice, as much as I want to see Kenny.
Sure, and that's how every fan base is. You get the fresh young rookie comes in, and especially when he looks as good as Pickett did, the excitement is there. You want him to start week one. But I think the Steelers also, they kind of want to see how things play out with this team. Maybe it's better than you expect. Maybe it's worse than you expect. Maybe the offensive line is terrible, and now you have a rookie quarterback back there getting killed every play, So I think you're better off starting with the veterans, see what happens, and then maybe you transition to Pickett later in the year. Especially when the playoff hopes are dashed, they absolutely should go to Pickett, get him a few games. This way, when you're going into 2023, he's got a little experience, and then hopefully hits the ground running, and you have a bright future. But I don't see the Steelers going anywhere this year. They're going to try, but ultimately, they're going to miss the playoffs.
Cooler heads prevailed. Let's just put it that way.
Right.
Speaking of the Steelers' answer, according to NFL.com, they're going to enter a new era with heavy hearts in 2022, as those emotions will be shown on the back of their helmets in honor of Dwayne Haskins, who passed away in a car accident in Florida. Tragic accident. He was only 24 years old. He died on April 9th, so they will have the number 3 sticker on the back of their helmets to honor him. So,
yeah, that's a great move by a classy organization. Steelers, are one of the classiest organizations out there. Does not surprise me at all. Just a horrible tragedy what happened to Dwayne Haskins, and to see the Steelers recognizing him like this, I think that's a really, really great move by that team.
So I gotta ask you. So for me, I'll be honest. I'm a little tired of hearing about the Dallas Cowboys.
Same.
And I'm going to tell you why. Because even though it took every part of my being to watch this, was when Jerry Jones came on the First Take, and of course Stephen A has to do his pageantry and the hat and how much he hates their fans. My biggest thing was the stuff that Jerry said that just kind of made me sit back as a guy who's been watching football since he was 8 years old and has been dissecting it since he was 13 years old. I just don't understand him, Mike. I don't. I don't understand his mentality. I understand his mentality from an owner side, from saying the right thing or wanting to say the right thing. But at what point does that get in the way of you making the right moves for that team? He made a comment about when I find the right person to take that spot, I'll find him and I'll hire him. Now, obviously, he was talking about the GM role and how he's still in that GM role. And basically, he's telling the world that he's not going to get out of it until he finds somebody. And right now, apparently, there's not that someone out there. But yet, this is a man that continues to hang on to coaches way too long, players way too long. Look, I'm all for people being loyal. And Jerry Jones is obviously a very loyal fella. Let's just put it that way. But at what point are you going to stop doing that to benefit your team like you did in the 90s? You didn't do it then, and this is a different time, Jerry. Things are different. Things work different in the NFL. And I just feel like he's so stuck in that mentality from 20, 30 years ago that he can't find himself doing what he needs to get done here. And he's afraid to step down as GM for whatever reason. Do you think they need to bring in a GM and fix what's wrong in Dallas?
Absolutely, and the proof is in the pudding. They haven't won since Jerry really took the reins and in the mid '90s and really took the reins of being the GM and making the decisions. Yeah, they absolutely should. I mean, a wealthy man with an ego, and who's surprised by that, and that ego has gotten him nowhere. And I think that's what is his issue. That's why he wants his hands on everything. He wants the glory when things go well. Clearly, it's not working. So yeah, absolutely, they should bring in a GM and have a collaborative effort. This is the way things go. Sometimes the best GMs are the ones that take advice from the guys around them, make the ultimate decision. They make their own decisions sometimes, but it helps to have help. And trying to run that team on his own and trying to make the decisions. I wouldn't say he doesn't know anything about football, but I would venture to guess that most general managers in this league have way more knowledge about football than he does. And to your point about his loyalty with coaches, I don't think it's so much loyalty as it is he likes guys he can control, right?
Right.
Jason Garrett was a puppet coach. I think Mike McCarthy is very much a puppet coach, and I think if he wasn't a puppet coach, he wouldn't
Wouldn't be
be
there.
the lead man in Dallas, nor would he have probably gotten another job after the way things ended in Green Bay. So yeah, Jerry has got that team. They're always competitive, which is nice, but they haven't gotten over the hump to win a Super Bowl. And every year, I'm sick of hearing the Cowboys are watch out for the Cowboys this year. They're going to win the division. They're a Super Bowl
Right.
contender or whatever. I'm sick of it. They're not even going to win the division this year. They'll be lucky to make the playoffs. I'm just, I'm tired of the Cowboys really at this point. Show me something, and then we'll talk.
Look, I'm with you, and because at the end of the day, you also have to look at, what's going on personnel wise. Mari Cooper leaves. After you get him from the Raiders, and he's a key focal point. And Ezekiel Elliott, we're talking about. I hate to use this term. He's an aging back. He
Yeah.
just is. He's not doing what. Look, shelf lives of a running back, you and I both know, are what, 3 to 5 years. He is so far past that point. He hasn't been productive as he has been. Age waits for no man. Father time waits for no man, no woman. And Ezekiel Elliott is no different. The fact that Jerry Jones thinks that they can still ride his back is ludicrous. It was one of the most ridiculous statements he made on that show that day. And I'm just like, how is this man not watching himself in replay and going, maybe I should go get a GM, but he's not going to, because he's so prideful and he thinks that his way is going to work because they've had Super Bowls. Jerry, why don't you do your fan base a favor and find guys that will win you playoff games? Start there.
Yeah,
Just to
yeah, and another problem for Elliott in the running game is that their offensive line isn't as good as it was in past years. So that's another big issue that they've got. They had one of the best offensive lines, for probably the last handful of years, maybe not the last one or two, but I mean they had a damn near Pro Bowler at every spot. They don't have that anymore. So and then you mentioned Zeke falling off a little bit. Tony Pollard is a really interesting player who I like a lot, and I think is going to be involved. I think you're going to see him working out of the slot this year. He'll be there, pass catching back in a lot of instances. So maybe feeding Zeke isn't the right move. Maybe Tony Pollard is the guy
yeah,
who gives you a better chance to win. And I definitely think, Jerry said the offense needs to run through Zeke. He's trying as hard as he damn can to justify that contract he gave Zeke, which has
yep,
been a huge waste of money and
yep.
a huge burden on the team's salary cap as well. So, yeah, I mean, they're going to feed Zeke. They're going to try, but I don't have much confidence in him, to be honest with you. And watch out for Tony Pollard this year, because if he's more effective, the Cowboys have got to change things up a little bit with the way they do their offense. And their receiving core as well right now. No Michael Gallup this week. You got CD Lamb and a bunch of guys, and,
Right,
and Dalton Schultz obviously is a very good tight end. And but their third round pick, Jalen Tolbert, seems to be behind schedule. He may not even be active today.
right.
So that offense has a lot of question marks, and probably Zeke is one of the biggest.
I agree, and I think you're putting a lot on. You mentioned CeeDee Lamb. I think a lot is going to be put on him as well. Not that I think he minds it, because as young as he is, you can tell in the way he plays, in the way he interacts, that he's one of those guys that probably thrives on that. Give it to me. Give me the ball. I got it. Give me whatever I need to do. Which you want a guy like that on your team. You want a guy like that in pivotal moments and in pivotal positions. And I think that's good for him, but in hindsight, I also think it's going to be detrimental to him, because I think it's going to be too much for a guy that young, because now everybody is looking at him. I agree with you on the Tony Pollard thing, but I think a lot of it is going to be pushed on Lamb, to be that next guy now that Amari Cooper isn't there.
Yeah, and he said all the right things this offseason. He's ready to step into that number one role, and I agree with him. I think he's a fantastic player. I think he's going to have a huge season. My biggest concern is who's lining up opposite him, right? You got Gallup
Yeah.
coming off the torn ACL. Is he going to be himself when he does get back? A lot of times guys aren't in their first year back from a torn ACL. So that's a concern. And if you don't have a clear-cut number 2 option, or I guess maybe you could even say number 3 with Dalton Schultz being the number 2, defenses are going to key in on CeeDee Lamb. Who's going to step up and take the pressure off of him and allow him to see more single coverage and things like that? Otherwise, if nobody steps up, defenses are just going to double him or bracket him and do whatever they can to stop him and force somebody else to beat them. And that's why Michael Gallup is extremely important to this offense this year. He's really got to take that next step. They paid him a pretty good amount of money, for really not having proven much. So yeah, I mean, I'm expecting big things out of CeeDee Lamb this year. I'm big into him in fantasy football as well.
Oh, yeah.
But somebody has got to help him out. He's not going to be able to carry this team on his own.
Absolutely. All right, right down the line, Michael J, Mike Moraitis, Hot 97.7. You can also check us out at Michael J Radio on Twitter, and we're also at RDTL Show on Twitter. You can watch us live. We're going to take a quick break, pause for the cause. When we come back, we're going to talk about some new additions to some NFL teams. And, of course, we'll give you our quick breakdown of certain divisions that we like, picks that we like, and we'll give you our picks for your AFC, NFC, and, of course, the Super Bowl. Keep it locked, y'all. Don't go nowhere.